Hey, and welcome to the Odd Topic Podcast. My name is Brett Beckerman, and today I'm joined by my fellow host Luke Hawkins.
Hey.
And today we're talking about the things that keep us ticking. Fuck, it went everywhere. Luke, give me a cloth. No.
Oh god, my iPad's coming.
Fucking horrible idea.
We're talking about brewing. All things related to brewing. Beer and coffee.
Good. Run.
If it wasn't clear, beer literally exploded all over us.
I don't even know what to say.
Well, what else can you say?
Yo.
A great intro to today's topic.
So today we are talking about brewing. And not just beer, but coffee and kind of all the great things that keep us going in the morning, in the afternoons, or whenever.
Specifically the former.
Yeah. So that was a great Stellenbosch lager that went everywhere.
These things are little powder kegs, man.
Oh, man. So, yeah, Luke, would you call yourself a connoisseur of beer or coffee?
Yes and no, in that I like them. That's pretty much all I have to say.
I mean, that's a good enough answer. That's a good enough answer.
No, I do enjoy beer. I love some crafties. We have a lot of really cool local ones.
We do have some cool local ones.
So that's always nice. And then coffee, we've got some pretty cool local ones too.
Hint,
we'll get
hint,
into
nudge,
that.
nudge. We'll get into that. So yeah, we're in the Eastern Cape, which I wouldn't say is like the hub of craft beer in South Africa, but
No.
we definitely have our fair share here, and some great places. Cape Town, obviously mother city of South Africa for all those international people, is kind of like the craft beer central. Everything craft, everything kind of great. And
I'd even say craft coffee. I mean, that doesn't really exist, but
if
kind of.
if it exists, it's there. And I mean, you say that, but they've got those little jars of aged coffee.
Yeah.
So it's basically like those old school medicine bottles. So you can go to like Truth Coffee and you can actually pick up one of those old school medicine bottles.
That's
and
pretty cool.
It's been like aged for a couple months, couple years. I think the one's like 2 years it's been
Yeah.
aged. So trust Cape Town to have those cool and quirky things, which I will get into a few other cool things later, which kind of leads into your topic.
Yeah.
But it kind of matches both of them, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so I am going to tackle the beer side of things. I feel like
Frothy. Cold, delicious beer.
crisp.
Crisp. Oh, what a good word. I love that word, man. Crisp. It's the C and the P, just the crisp.
Good word. So in the Eastern Cape, actually specifically, okay, maybe, I know it is part of the Zulu tribe as well. So as you probably would have heard over a couple of these podcasts, I'm from the Transkei, and I grew up with the Xhosa tribes, if you want to call it that. I'm not a Xhosa tribe.
I'm trying very hard not to comment this time.
Luke, calm down. But growing up, one of their traditional beers is called Mqombothi.
I've even had that.
Have you tasted it? What did you think?
If I'm thinking of the right stuff, it's like a really thick, milky.
Yeah.
They pour it into their like hand and they like.
Well,
Well, that's what I was shown to do. Pour it in your hand. You just kind of like sip it out of your hand.
and in their minds, they're like, haha, white boy.
Probably, yeah.
So, okay, not quite out of your hands, but basically Mqombothi is like a maize meal beer. So it's normally made of like a mixture of like sorghum, a sorghum malt, a maize meal, which is like corn or mealie. Here it's called mealie.
Yeah.
So like a mealie meal. And it's fermented with yeast outside in the sun, and then put into like a cool place. And it's a very traditional beer. It's very milky. It's very grainy because of the maize. The maize doesn't really dissolve completely, and you kind of all sit in a circle, and it gets passed around in a bowl, not out of your hands, Luke. I myself am a part of a brewery. I semi-own a brewery, and actually brewed yesterday, which is why I wanted to talk about this.
It was really funny. He called me up asking for some, what was it, calcium chloride?
Calcium chloride.
Thinking I'd have some for my fish tank.
So there are three of us that brew. A good mutual friend of ours, of Luke and mine, who actually got me into beer and brewing and all that. His father, who's like brewmaster extraordinaire, and then myself, the noob sentry, who kind of just sits around and does all the medial tasks that they don't want to do.
Stir this.
Literally for half an hour, just stir the yeast. So, so the biggest thing about beer is water. Your water has to be perfect. And whether you use rainwater or you use municipal water, for us, we've got rain or dam water because we have 2 large dams on our farm, which is kind of, there's lots of chemicals in it, but
probably better than municipal.
It is better than municipal, but it's not perfect. So your starting water has to be at a very specific pH, and there's lots of chemicals in the structure of your water which will affect that. And
does water hardness come into play here?
Yeah, heavily. So the water hardness, which is actually more your calcium hardness, is a big factor on how much lactic acid you add into it to bring your acidity up or down. Our water is very soft. We have very, very soft water. Luke will know a lot about the hardness because of his fish tanks.
Yep.
And that is why I called him, because we had calcium carbonate and not calcium chloride. Calcium carbonate is a very similar substance to what shells are made out of. And we needed the chloride, which can dissolve in water. The other one does not.
Did you guys find any, by the way?
No. So we did a bit of Googlettering, and we figured out that you can use salt. So coarse kosher salts will help bring...
calcium chloride isn't it NaCl? What's that? Oh, that's sodium chloride. Sorry.
Yeah, that's sodium chloride. Yeah. Calcium, sodium salt. So apparently kosher salt that uniodized, basically the salt that has no potassium iodide in it, you can use that. So we tried that. Our pH was spot on. So we think it worked, but we don't actually know.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. 2 weeks, time will tell.
You said your last batch wasn't the greatest, eh?
No, because our pH was out. We literally didn't touch the water. We just put rainwater in. We chucked in the ingredients. We're like, cool. We did this last time and it was fine. But the problem was it rained the night before, and rain is super soft water. It's got no nutrients. Rain is literally as pure as you can get it. So we were like, nope, we're not going to do that again. We got all our water tested and we kind of ran with it. So hold thumbs that this one will actually work out.
Yeah, I have faith.
Yeah, we all have faith. Thankfully, one of our local brewery or local brewers around here, every October they do an Oktoberfest where they let all the little breweries around come forward, and you can kind of bring a cake through and give away to the...
It's very cool.
It's very cool. It's a lot of fun. Brewing beer is great and all, but being able to stand there and tap off some beer for some people and chatting to them, it's the greatest thing ever. It really is. I don't know. It's so much fun. Because you can speak a lot of shit to people and they probably won't understand. You're like, well, this was brewed with this at this. They're like, oh, cool, it tastes great. That. So yeah, I'm not going to go too heavily in the brewing process. If you guys have queries about brewing
Google it,
more in depth, Google it, or ask me. We'll do a follow-up tidbit on it. So yeah, I went through all the cool I kind of had to do my own little research into all the cool things we do. And one thing that I found very, very interesting, which I don't know if a lot of people know about, but back in the day, not as far back as Origins, but when people used to brew in industry, before yeast was known to do what it does in beer. So basically, yeast will eat the sugars and it will basically fart out the alcohol in the beer. That's kind of what the process is. So very crudely what the process is.
A lot of people don't realize that yeast is living.
Yeast is living.
Weird.
Yeast is a living thing, yeah. So back in the day, they didn't actually quite know what made the beer ferment. They would just leave it and all the wild yeast would kind of come in and ferment the beer. But the problem with wild yeast is there's so many strains of wild yeast. Yeah. So they would never know what they got. And basically, if they brewed a good brew, they would kind of just carry on. And because that brew is going, it would kind of release... the yeast would be in that area. And they always used a stick to stir the wort once they were kind of working with it. It's so hectic to think that these oaks actually got away with making beer with such crude ways. This, and us, we make one screw up with our wrong chemical, and all of a sudden we're throwing away a whole keg. But still, it's super interesting. One thing I do love though, Guinness. I know you know Guinness, the beer.
Yeah.
So you know that little widget inside Guinness.
Yes.
Okay, so for you, those of you that don't know, in a Guinness canned beer, I think they only do cans anyway nowadays. All the ones that they export.
Is it in all the cans or just some of them?
It's the ones that they export. It's, as far as I know, it's in all of them.
Okay.
So in a Guinness can, when you open it, there's a little thing what they call a widget inside. It's a little ball, which basically contains nitrogen. And then when you release the pressure of the can, the nitrogen is obviously less pressurized, or it's pressured. You open the can, your pressure escapes, and the nitrogen ball basically releases nitrogen into the beer. The nitrogen bubbles kind of create that foam or that head as if your beer was being set out in a draft.
Yes, yeah. Make a draft like
so their goal was to make the can taste like it came out of a tap.
Okay.
It used to be CO2. Okay, obviously.
Is it successful? I don't drink Guinness enough to know if it works.
Is it successful?
Yeah.
In 1992, they took a vote of the most, the best invention in the past 40 years. In that time, the internet was a thing. That widget got 48% of the votes.
Jeez.
That widget was voted in, but okay, through the English community, it was the best invention from the past 40 years. So back in 2011, the whole craze of like iced coffees and that kind of came out, and there was a coffee hub in a place called Astoria. I think it's in the States somewhere. And the kind of coffee shop was just putting in a tap. They were obviously going to serve beer in that as well. And one of the baristas got pissed off and said, well, what are we doing about the fact that everyone's serving iced coffee and we're not doing anything about this, blah, blah, blah. And the owner said, well, why the hell don't you just put the coffee through the draft tap then? And they're like, that's a really good idea. We're going to try that. And apparently, like, it was like an instant hit. And everyone went crazy over it because they were mixing CO2 with coffee. And it was actually like a silky, carbonated coffee. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. So they took that, then they kind of decided to use nitrogen rather.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that silkier taste will go better with coffee, especially with like the fats in the milk. It'll kind of just.
I've got to wonder about like of the science behind how the hell you push coffee through a keg. You have to have it pressurized and heated, and then go through the keg, or what?
No, well, it's iced coffee.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
so it's fine because the problem is your nitrogen.
Oh, then it doesn't matter. Just fill a keg with coffee.
Exactly. Yeah. Because so your carbonation or your nitrogen, all those gases absorb into liquids better when they're colder. So the hotter your liquid, the less absorption there is. That's why when you when you try and like you've got a bottle of sparkling water and it's super hot outside and you open it, all of that escapes and it foams over. Whereas if it's super cold, you open it, nothing foams over because the nitrogen still is absorbed or the CO2 is still absorbed. So yeah, it's a weird thing, but I find it pretty cool. But enough about beer, Luke. Take us away with the coffee, my bro.
Coffee. So we all love a good cup of coffee.
Love me some coffee.
I freaking love me some coffee.
You said that very, very
sultry.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I know you like coffee there as well.
Every day.
When I first met old Brett here and our mutual acquaintance that we previously mentioned, they would do coffee runs at every kind of tea time and lunchtime.
Okay, just tea time. We're not animals.
And they would drive. They'd leave work. They'd take, I think you guys had a half an hour break or whatever.
Yeah.
Drive all the way to like a different suburb, leave work, just to get a cup of coffee and then drive all the way back. And it's like your whole break gone, but it's worth it. I mean, it's pretty good coffee. So.
Luke, when we asked you, do you want to come with? You didn't say, it's a waste of time. You're like, hell yeah.
Of course, man. And it was really good. But yeah, so coffee.
It is good coffee. We still go there.
It's, yeah.
Anele, best.
Anyway, so coffee has obviously blown up in popularity the past few years. Like, it's always been popular. But with all these trendy new places nowadays opening up and the sort of boom of like Starbucks, which I suppose has also always been there, but I don't know, with all the new fancy stuff they're doing, your spiced pumpkin lattes.
Pumpkin spice latte.
Which, okay, we don't really get Starbucks here. I don't know if you do in Cape Town.
The franchise is open in South Africa, but it's doing really badly.
Yeah.
Like really, really
bad. Surprised.
We have Seattle.
We also have better coffee than Starbucks.
Oh, hell yeah.
Starbucks is not good coffee.
No, it's not.
Seattle's pretty good. I don't
it's
hate
better.
it. If I had to go for a sort of quick stop-off coffee place, I would pick
definitely.
a Seattle or
a
Wimpy or McDonald's coffee.
100% agree.
Anyway, so coffee is super popular now, but nobody really knows where it originated from. Some people point to Ethiopia, where there's kind of stories of a goat farmer that was walking his goat.
That's what I heard. Is it not that?
Apparently, okay, it's a bit of a point of contention. So he was walking his goat and he eats a berry thing, which is a coffee, coffee bean in it, and he felt a bit energetic. He's like, "Oh, this stuff is great."
And he noticed that the goat was jumping a little bit.
Yeah. So that's one of the many things. There's also that it started in like a monastery in Yemen. I don't know what religion it is. So I'm not gonna really talk about it too much, but
I don't know.
But basically, they were brewing their own kind of thing in there. There's a whole bunch of stories. There's Egyptians started it, and they had their little coffee dedicated buildings, which were the first cafes ever made. So it's one of those things where I think every culture is trying to claim, "Oh no, I did it." And because everyone's trying to stake a claim, the waters are quite muddied now as to where it originally come from.
It's the same as beer. There were so many different claims and so many different origins that no one actually knows who did it. But also back then, no one could actually say, well, I actually did it before you. Where's the proof?
Yeah. I mean, Arabia and stuff has a huge claim on it as well. You get a type of coffee bean called Arabica.
Correct.
Which originated there. So who really knows? But yeah, so everyone's kind of trying to stake a claim,
but still
but
very,
really knows.
But very weird though that all of them around that time, I mean, everyone along the coffee belt, like discovered it.
Yeah,
like the fact that it had this probably like it still amazes me on how
maybe
they
God
discovered
was just like in the 15th century, and now you have coffee.
It took them like 10 years too long. He's like, people drink this.
But yeah, I mean, it's spread across the world as these things do. With the whole European trade and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It really popular in Europe more than anywhere else, sort of. Or in the Western world. That's where it started. America kind of got it from Europe and so on and so forth. I didn't do too much research as to where it came from because I don't really care. All I know is that I like it.
Yeah, it's great.
Perhaps the biggest insult to coffee, though, is when they invented instant coffee. God,
it's not even made
instant
with the proper coffee bean. It's
pot coffee, pot chicory.
No, don't do that.
It's nonsense.
No.
But what's interesting about it is, I mean, I get why they invented it. It's because A, cheap. B, you need to supply the at the time the armies with coffee.
Yeah.
And your normal workers, factory workers with coffee. And you can't importing coffee means it's expensive, but everyone loves coffee. So what do? You make instant coffee.
Correct. It's understandable.
So I get it. I mean, the problem with it is that it's caused a lot of people to either A, not like coffee because of how shit instant coffee is. They think all coffee is shit.
Yeah.
Or B, only like instant coffee because they add a shit ton of sweetener or sugar and milk. And they've made it this kind of weird, almost like a sweet soup.
Yeah, it's like this syrup coffee.
Yeah, especially when you use a creamer instead of milk. And yeah, so instant coffee sucks. There are different tiers of instant coffee though, which I mean, ranging from your really cheap. Here we get Rick Coffee, which is I think a Nestle brand, eh?
Nescafe is Nestle.
But I think Rick Coffee is as well. I don't know. Don't want to misquote.
I don't actually know.
Jamie, pull that shit up. But yeah, so like upper tiers.
It is.
Yeah,
it's a Nescafe brand.
Yeah. So it's like your entry tier instant coffee, which is really, really bad.
And then you buy a tub from it for 750 grams for 95 rand of take a lot.
And that'll last you like coffee, yeah. But yeah, then you get your kind of your Nescafes, which certain ones like Nescafe Gold, not that bad. It's still instant coffee, but it's got more ground coffee in it than anything, than chicory and stuff. And you get your Jacobs as well.
So I still don't like any of them.
No, look, me neither. But in an office environment where they can't have a coffee machine in the office or there's too many people, then a Jacobs is not the end of the world. Actually, one of my dad's little passion projects now has been coffee, and he started to roast his own beans. So he would import beans from, well, I suppose a company in Johannesburg, I think, imported beans from Ethiopia and all these other places. I say all these other places. Where else did they come from? I want to say Uganda. No, I'm joking. But so they imported these beans, and then my dad would then get kind of raw beans from this other place, and then he got this like smallish roaster. I can't remember exactly how many volumes it was, but it's a little guy. It can fit in like a bedroom easily.
Okay.
That's like probably the size of maybe 2 or 3 of those water coolers, that you get.
Okay, yeah, okay, fair enough.
So really, really not big. And he'd roast his own. Kind of, I think it started off kind of just for himself, but I mean the roasters aren't cheap, even the small size ones. So he ended up turning this into like a bit of a business, and he would roast. He'd start packaging his own beans, distributing to just local small coffee shops in the area, and obviously private sales as well.
Yeah.
And then he found this was actually doing quite well. And this is kind of a little bit before the coffee boom happened in East London. East London's always late to everything. So Cape Town was already quite popular, but East London not so much. So he had a bit of a not control, but he was in the market first.
Yeah, which is quite nice to kind of to be at that point.
Yeah. So he got in there, and then he ended up doing quite well with it. So he bought a bigger coffee roaster. Actually, what's really cool, this coffee roaster was designed and engineered and built by a local engineer.
What?
Not East London local, but I think Johannesburg,
okay.
I think he was.
Shit.
Called Genio Roasters. It's a little plug for him. It's a Genio machine. He's an engineer. I think he studied mechatronics as well.
Okay.
Anyway, very nice guy. And he helped my dad set up this machine. So this is now a bigger one, kind of, I wouldn't say industrial scale. It's not massive, but it needs a dedicated coffee room kind of thing. And it has a whole like chaff collecting system. So chaff when you're roasting coffee is like the kind of shell or skin that can come off the beans when you're roasting. You need a proper way of disposing it, otherwise it's a fire hazard. And
yeah, that's true.
Also, it's proper ventilation. So it's quite a beast of a machine. Anyway, so my dad's little coffee venture ended up expanding to this point. He's now supplying to supermarkets as well in the area. And then he's now also a rep for Jura. Jura is like a Swiss branded coffee machine brand where he sells, repairs, and rents out these machines. Not trying to plug it. Not even going to say the name of the place. But anyway, so this was the passion, like his passion. So I'm also co-owner of this endeavor, but to be honest, I don't really do anything. My dad does it all. Other than I've done a handful of sales, but he's really the guy.
You basically just plug the product.
I plug it like
you consume the product. You enjoy the product.
Yeah, but I mean it's his baby. But what it has done for me is it's sort of made me get more into coffee than I was.
Yeah.
I was never super into coffee. I always loved it, but like obviously having nice coffee growing up. But I wasn't afraid of like a Jacobs, as I was saying, and whatever. I wasn't like it has to be fancy beans.
You weren't a snob.
Yeah. I was not. Unlike you guys who had to go all the way there to go get your. But yeah, so what it has taught me is a few interesting little kind of hot takes of some simple coffee stuff that people didn't know. So just a couple of kind of hot takes. Number one, coffee pods are a waste of money.
I feel like that was very directly pointed at me.
Yeah. You and many others. God, I hate these things. Anyway, so as I said, they contribute a huge amount of plastic waste to the environment. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm crazy environmentally conscious or anything. I don't go to like climate change rallies, but it's bad. A lot of the wastage are these stupid coffee pods. It's become a problem. The price you pay per pod is ridiculous. If you do the math, buying like a cheapo pod maker, let's be real, the machines are fairly cheap.
Yeah, they are fairly cheap.
But the pods themselves are so expensive.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting like in bulk a really good deal on pods, which you sometimes find, I guess, it's never really worth it. Whereas buying like a bag of coffee, I don't have the maths in front of you, but it ends up being so much cheaper per time. And you end up paying something like 2 to 3 rand per cup, whereas a pod it's like 12 rand, 10 to 12 rand a cup.
Yeah, sounds about right.
It's crazy. And that doesn't, like, whatever, you got enough money, it's really not much. You're paying triple that at a cafe, who cares, But you do the math, and over a year's worth of pods versus a year's worth of beans, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I would stay away. I get it if you like different flavors, as I said earlier.
It does have the advantage of being able to pick and choose and not being tied. Like when you open up a bag of coffee, you're tied to that until it's finished. Whereas the pods are kind of like pick and choose. But I mean, that doesn't really make up for it. Yeah. I think the one upside to pods that I think the only upside I can bring other than the flavor thing is it stays fresh, and you can, if you've got a pod there, you can use it in a week's time. Like,
yes,
I kept like opening bags of coffee, and then you're busy for 2 weeks and you're back. Oh, I'll have coffee again, and it's just a stale mess.
The thing, I guess so. That is true. That is one of my other points as well. But with pods, I don't know what goes into them, what kind of chemicals they add to them. But how can they be so good so far down the line? Just because they're sealed in foil? I don't think so.
So I opened up one of the capsules for Dolce Gusto because I was very curious. I mean, your Nescafe or your Nespresso, pods are, it's basically just a tinfoil cover, and then it's sealed.
Yeah.
Whereas your Dolce Gusto has like this weird mechanism on the bottom.
Okay.
They've almost got like a membrane on the inside storing the coffee, which is sealed without oxygen. So oxygen is what'll
yes, definitely
kind of cause the coffee to go stale. They just basically suck the oxygen
so it's like
out,
almost vacuum sealed
basically. And then when you push the hot water through, it kind of evaporates that membrane and kind of pushes everything through. So that's my only thought is maybe just
now where I'm a bit confused in pods as well. So your coffee flavor, okay, again, pods adding all these additives you don't really know, but your flavorful like your traditional coffee flavor comes from the compression ratio and extraction ratio of coffee out of your beans or your grounds. And I don't know how that works in these pods. I know they essentially, if my understanding is correct, they do pump pressurized liquid basically through these pods.
Correct.
And that gives you the coffee. So it's not too dissimilar.
It's actually a very interesting like engineered way they do the capsules. For instance, the Dolce Gusto has a little pin that pricks through the top cover, but then underneath that top cover there's a void of maybe like 5 to 10 mils. In that void it fills with water, and only once the water reaches a certain pressure does it actually dissolve that membrane and push through.
Okay.
Whereas the Nespresso, it kind of punctures that capsule, and I think it pressurizes itself inside the actual machine.
Okay.
I don't know. They get it right.
Yeah. I mean, look, it can't be all that bad. People do like it for a reason. You know,
no,
if it was terrible,
great.
people would do it.
Okay, Nespresso.
I've had one or two at my friend's years ago. This is like when the first pod tech was really out. So that's where my knowledge base is from. But there are different flavors. I think I had like a little vanilla latte thing.
Okay.
They do. It was nice. I give them that. But then again, me not really knowing coffee and it being so sweet and all this kind of thing, and me probably adding more sugar and milk, it's not proper coffee.
It's not proper coffee, no.
So I think if you're looking for that proper traditional coffee, I'd still stay away from pods. I don't want to shit on everyone that has a pod maker. So many people do, and they like it. If you like it, who cares? At the end of the day, you do you. But again, it's just not a very economical way to do it in terms of environment and your wallet.
All people that are angry at Luke now for shitting on pods, comment down below.
Whatever. Come at me, bro. Another really important kind of hot take is that stovetop espresso makers and French presses are woefully underrated.
Oh, Belletti. Belletti machine? Or Belletti, I think it's called Belletti is a brand.
I don't know.
It's a little stovetop pressurized things.
I get the cheaper camper equipment one. It doesn't really matter on the brand.
It does the same thing.
But yeah, they're great. I mean, they are underrated because the coffee now has been overrun by the tech industry, and not as crazy as I'm making it sound, but they market that you have to have this really expensive coffee machine to make good coffee, and that's absolute bullshit.
Oh, 100%.
Don't buy into that for a second. And this coming from me, whose dad's a rep for Jura, who makes these expensive machines, and I even have an expensive Jura machine in my house. But you don't need them at all. In fact, I guarantee if I take my stovetop coffee pot or my French press, which I also have, and make a cup of coffee versus the coffee I'm getting out of my machine, you will hands down prefer probably the French press coffee over everything else.
Yeah.
Of course, you get those proper barista machines.
Oh, yeah.
Which my dad actually installed in his own house.
No, really?
Those huge ones where you actually have a pressurized
don't you control the pressure and everything? Yeah.
And it's quite funny. Those ones are actually way more analog than these Jura machines. So,
100%.
Or any of these things. They're like fancy touch screens and all these buttons and different options, and you can select your volume of coffee. And these things are literally thunk, push a button, do its thing, and then thunk when you're done.
Turn a nozzle until you get the right pressure.
Yeah. And I mean, they're great because, again, it boils down to you don't need this tech. You just need the pressure. You need good quality coffee, and you need the pressure.
But it boils down to how much time do you want to put into your morning coffee, and how much time do you want to put into yourself to learn that machine to know how to do it. A good friend of mine is also as much of a snob as I am, and he bought himself a decently priced machine. I don't know what brand it is, but it's more along the lines of what those full barista machines are. So he basically controls everything from his heat, so the temperature of the water, his pressure for his extraction, and all of that, as well as the steam for the milk to micro froth the milk. And he said when he first got the machine, it took him a full bag of beans to get it to like perfection. And he said like it's actually to make coffee in the morning is like you have to wake up like 10 to 15 minutes earlier just to like prep everything. But no, it pays off.
It does. It ultimately does.
Correct.
But now, arguably the most important thing, obviously, I suppose, is your coffee beans themselves. So this is number 3 of my points here. Freshly roasted coffee beats absolutely everything.
Oh, hell yeah.
Pure beans, i.e. ungrounded beans, are far more lenient in that they can stay on the shelf for much longer. I'd say, I don't know, misquote here, but I mean, even over 2-3 weeks on the shelf is no problem. I mean,
really? That long?
Not a problem.
Hectic.
The fresher the better, though, which is what the point. The fresher the better, definitely. But you aren't going to have terrible coffee if it's been there for 2 weeks. Whereas with ground coffee, it has to be fresh.
What I did find, though, is a lot of these bags of coffee, they have that little one-way valve on the back, so you can kind of squeeze the coffee to smell it. You'll always find like the frontmost coffee is always like squeezed to hell. I never get those because clearly it's like the one everyone picks up, like squeezes, it smells, okay, cool. Pick them on the back, still nice and plump, good, okay.
I must say, I live in a bit of luxury with this one because whenever I want coffee, I just go to the factory, grab some coffee.
Asshole.
It's fresh as anything.
So yeah, that is our brewing knowledge and our brewing experience. I think brewing is definitely something close to both our hearts.
I'd say less knowledge, more experience.
100%.
Because obviously, I mean, this stuff is so in depth. You can get so scientific about every aspect of it. You know, there's a whole slew of different things. I mean, it's not something you can just cover in a hour-long podcast.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm just giving some hot takes. Brett's giving his experiences as well. I mean, I'm sure even beer is way more complicated than coffee.
Yeah, a lot more complicated than you think. But yeah, I agree. Definitely something to kind of follow up
if you're into this kind of stuff, do some proper research. Don't just... we're not a reliable source for information when it comes to like, hey, these guys said this is easy. I'm going to start a coffee roastery. I'm going to start a brewery. No.
We are
do research. See if you can do it. If you're able to. Do you have the means? All that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun experience. It's cool stuff. I hope that the things that we've said have imparted some knowledge on you that you can take away. Yeah,
and that at least interest or spark some sort of creativity in your mind where you can kind of look into beer brewing or coffee roasting and brewing and just expand your senses.
Your horizons.
Your senses and horizons.
What's actually interesting, Brett, is of these past few episodes that we've done and the next week's episode that we're planning is it's starting to sound like we have a really broad worldly view of everything that we've discussed. I mean, we do. I mean, I didn't think so, but all the stuff we're talking about that we actually have knowledge in them, stuff that we've experienced is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
I've always kind of felt that, I've done nothing with my life.
Yeah, just
working 24/7. You look back, you're like, wow, there's a lot of shit happening. You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of shit happening. And we hope to bring that shit happening to you guys on a weekly basis. I mean, we have a lot of, I would say, different environmental experiences.
Yeah, to most.
Yeah, because of all the things that we do and all the things we're a part of. And I mean, all we can kind of hope that it makes for more entertaining and more interesting kind of stories for you guys. So
that I feel is the appeal of our podcast, because like a lot of people that are listening are probably stuck in the 8 to 5 grind, you know.
Yeah.
Let's not pretend we're not either. We just find
time for what little time we have left.
It's quite cool because of where we live and what we've done and what we've experienced. It's very different to what you'd find in a big city.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
So for all you folk who are kind of stuck in that groove, we hope to alleviate you from that every week and bring you some otherworldly topics. And thanks for listening. This has been great. This has been a lot of fun talking about all the stuff that we are a part
try
of.
not to spill any more beer on anything.
It was a very, very rocky start, but I think we trooped through. Thank goodness we weren't starting this podcast with coffee, otherwise things would be really heated in here.
So sticky.
So thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week. Cheers.
Bye.